look.
Hello everybody, I'm Mango Thunderslice, and today we are talking about what exactly is white nationalism, right? Very in vogue topic. You saw in that opening clip, basically the Highland Celtic Games happened recently here in the Sacramento area. It's about an hour drive from where we live, but it's a really great event. Probably my favorite, one of my favorite festivals of the year. One of the only ones that we go to these days now that we've got little baby Isla. And you saw her there in her little kilt, and it's just a great time. Great people, a good time to just remember, our history. For people who have Celtic ancestry, and there's plenty of people there that just like to go because it's fun. There's athletic competitions. It's called the caber toss. It's basically these huge guys just picking up essentially telephone poles and carrying them and throwing them. It's pretty awesome. And, there's a lot of different, aspects of it. A Norse quarter where they kind of reenact, kind of pagan rituals back in the day. And, a lot of bagpipe playing, a lot of good music, a lot of good beer. And it's just good times. And I thought that this was a good kind of, premise to start on with regard to this, because there's this caricature of Americans in this country that people on the left believe in, that Americans are basically all just racist, neo-Nazis, and that anybody who has even a shred of pride in their own history and, in that memory of their collective identity, and that inheritance, they're racist and they're filthy, degenerate, white supremacists, and they're the worst people on earth. And, basically anytime that, the POCs and the left can take power from the white man, it's only a good thing, because all white people are oppressive, all white people benefited from slavery, and all white people are intrinsically evil and prejudiced against everyone else in the world. And no one else in the world is like that. Again, the corollary to this theory, almost implicitly, is that the rest of the world is all really there with the liberals, and really just like these progressive liberals, they think that the rest of the world thinks that they do. Like people in China and Korea and Japan and India and Pakistan and all over the world, they think that they're just let's root for the liberals and equality and everybody multiculturalism. It's so hilarious that people who can claim to be so cosmopolitan and worldly in knowledge of the world, they have utterly no awareness of how other cultures in the world are. You think that Asians, Koreans, and Japanese and Chinese, you think they all just get along and they all just, we're all Asians, yeah, we love multiculturalism. They hate each other. Space Panther, she taught English in Korea, and these little kids would be like, teacher, what do you think about Japanese? And Space Panther's like, oh yeah, they're nice. And it's like, the kid's like, no, we think it's funny when Japanese die. Like, whoa, my goodness, right? The idea that all the cultures of the world are just waiting to, jump into Kumbaya circle and start beating the drums and all live together in happy Disney Wonderland. It's so fallacious, and again, it belies such a lack of understanding, lack of self-awareness, and it's really it's a program. It's a program that comes out of the media, primarily, but we're at the stage where, we can blame the media, but at a certain point in the age of information, ignorance is a choice, right? You're choosing to be brainwashed, so it's not just the media, it's not just the controllers and, the Jews or the Jesuits or whoever you want to, make the scapegoat du jour. It's basically the people who actually believe this stuff really are culpable at a certain point. It's the actual lay-level Democrat, liberal, progressive, communist authoritarian that really deserves the blame here. And at a certain point, it doesn't behoove us to always be blaming this or that controller or this or that media outlet. It's your fault if you believe a lie. It's your fault if you don't go and do your own due diligence and find out what the truth is. You can't just hide behind, oh, other people were saying it, and therefore I just said it and I'm absolved of responsibility. I mean, whether it's the Russiagate hoax, the Covington kids and the abuse that was leveled at them, I mean, all of the leftist delusions from the climate cult, which is divorced from reality, entirely, and is now just a political doomsday, fear porn campaign, right? To gun control, to everything, it's all just this narrative based on emotion. And, this is... It's a very, very radical shift that has taken place in this country. Tim Pool just did a great, little video about that and tweeted some of these, graphs showing that basically over the last 30, 40 years, the right has mostly stayed the same. Some has gotten a little more liberal. In general, it's moved a little bit to the right. But over that same time, the left has moved headlong into the far left, right? To the point where back in 1980... you had a big overlap, right? You had the left and the right, and we agreed on most things. And it was just, we were a little more in this direction, a little more in that direction. But in general, people agreed on values, common values. We agreed that we all wanted to go to the same place. We wanted to benefit our families equally. We wanted to all progress, economically and build a better life for ourselves individually and collectively. And what has happened is that, the right has stayed where it is. The left has gone so far to the left. It's basically now, this is why they call anybody alt-right or far-right. It's because they are now essentially communists. The median that they are now holding is now basically a socialist communist position. And so to them, they assume that that's the new normal. The media goes along, and every time the Overton window moves, they just play that as if this is the new normal. Right, except it's keep going faster and faster and faster, like magnetic North Pole these days. It just keeps running. And, so now anybody who even believes that there's two genders is now a far-right neo-Nazi, right? Somebody who is skeptical of the fallacious underpinnings of climate change science, right? That person's an alt-right neo-Nazi. A kid wearing a hat at a pro-life event in D.C. gets basically chastised, and thank God for Nicholas Sandman having some balls and going with his lawyer and suing the bejesus out of these outlets. Now I think the total claims, being filed for in court is like in excess of $500 million. Like, go for it, kid. He's not going to get all of it, but he's, they defamed him. They, in effect, ruined his career opportunities, and he's entitled to, take them to the mat and get what he can. I applaud his efforts. And, it's just very interesting, again, to see where things have come from the summer of 2016, and when this whole social justice warrior thing was really on the ascendant. I don't think a lot of people on the right, maybe some of them did, I don't think everybody really realized how far the narrative of the media went to the left over those years. It is really extraordinary, and now basically they are defending the most extreme fringe communist positions. Oh, look at that Nazi symbol. I mean, the perfect example. This is now a Nazi symbol because these people are so delusional that they think that there's people on the internet, again, these 13-year-old edgelords who are just basically trolling the left, and they know that they'll get so triggered, so they'll just make things up and say, oh, milk is now racist. Oh, this is now racist. Like, they're literally just artificially, clowns are racist. Clown world, right? It's not clown world is a racist meme. We don't live in clown world, except there's now children in drag, right? And a whole bunch of other craziness. And one of the archetypal differences between how the left and the right have reacted to these changes is that the left, so inundated in that media, right, like the frog in the boiling water, they think that all of these progressions toward drag children and no genders and communism as a good social and economic policy, they think that all of that is perfectly natural and organic and, just a natural progression. It's just progress, and that's the way that things are just naturally supposed to go. Whereas, the right and conservatives look at this and they see how fast it's moved. They see how coherent the entire broadcast is, that, it's not just CNN, that's promoting this. It's basically the entire media has gone full board into this program. I mean, there's Fox News, which is nominal opposition, but they only say the things that are already exposed by other, conservatives who are more on the fringe, right? So they're only really aggregating the safe topics and presenting that, repackaging that in an easily consumable form for boomers. Meanwhile, everybody, of any age, and also especially pretty much all young people are on the internet gathering information directly from the sources. Right, and this is, again, the crux of it is that back in 2016, this broke the entire election, right? You had people locked into the TV program, which were, it's her turn, it's her turn. And you had the people on the internet who knew, anybody who's on the internet has done a lick of research, knows how corrupt Hillary Clinton and the Clintons are, how they're tied into just a whole bunch of, they are the essence of the swamp, right? That how much money Bill and Hillary went into the Obama administration with and how much they came out with. I mean, they cashed out with her as Secretary of State. She literally just plundered the entire government, sold off 20% of United States uranium and got $150 million donated to their foundation, right? Anybody who looked on the internet knew these things. Anybody. It was not at all hard to find. But for the people who are locked in the media program and that social, hypnotism, they just went along with it, and to them it was a foregone conclusion. Then the WikiLeaks thing came out, right? And Bernie was getting robbed. People kind of knew it. Bernie was on the ascendant, but it was her turn, right? And so, I mean, it's not a democratic system in the Democratic Party at all, right? They ordain their leader, right? And if you're just truly a grassroots candidate, you've got literally 0% chance of ever making it in the Democratic Party. You got a pretty much 0% chance of making it in the Republican Party, unless you're somebody like Trump, a billionaire who didn't have strings attached to him, that could basically just bankroll his whole campaign without going and sucking up to pharma, sucking up to oil, all the rest of them. All that he took was purely on his own terms. Right, and unless you're at that status, you basically have to kowtow to whoever's going to bankroll your campaign. Hence the state of corruption in politics on both sides. And, Trump just literally rick-rolled all the lame-cuck rhinos. He basically just ran roughshod on all of them. The Trump train crushed them underfoot. And, it was just such a beautiful thing to behold. And back then, I was not on the Trump train at all. I was like, holy crap, I think this is a sign of the end times that Donald Trump runs as president. And it's, people take it as a serious thing. I was making fun of him the same as everybody else. But as time went on, and I saw what was playing out on the blue team and Bernie and Hillary, and then the WikiLeaks came out, and how Trump really just played those final months of the election really is what brought me around. And, specifically, there was the WikiLeaks and then there was the debates. I mean, he brought the teeth out and he sunk them into Hillary, and it was such a glorious thing to behold. One of the most glaring things for me was maybe it wasn't the debate. It was the one of the dinners, before the election. One of those dinners, I think it's sort of Jesuit dinner, and everybody gets together and roasts each other and tells jokes. And he was like, they say it takes a village, or in the case of Hillary Clinton, in Haiti, she's taken a number of them. Right? And so basically he's literally just openly calling out and making fun of her in a public square for basically the, child sex trafficking in Haiti and all that, basically Laura Silsby. Literally, there was a woman caught for trafficking like 30 children out of Haiti into the United States, and she was pardoned by Bill Clinton. He went down there and basically got her out of there. Right, so it's, again, anybody who did the most remote amount of research on the internet could see how not just corrupt, but straight up evil and satanic this hag Hillary Clinton truly was. And, Trump was playing it. He was hip to the social media aspect. He was going to all the different places where he knew that people were disaffected by the disastrous economic policies of Obama, basically just hollowing out the entire country. And Hillary Clinton was literally cheering on the further hollowing out of American industrial core. They're saying, if you are a coal miner, well, you're going to need to learn to code, right? Now learn to code is a racist epithet in Twitter's eyes, and basically anybody who tweets it at a journalist who got fired from HuffPo for meaningless puff articles, they're racist and they need to be banned because that's targeted harassment, right? Well, back then it was the journalists saying to the coal miners, who were lamenting their, end of their careers, and basically saying, "Oh, just learn to code, right? This is a glorious new future. Welcome." And and then there was the instance of her falling into the van, and she was just a mess, just a wreck, and it was obvious to people not only was she evil, corrupt, her health was infirm, she was completely tone deaf, calling people deplorables, right? Half the country deplorables. And, at the same time, everybody on the left was just, oh, it's a foregone conclusion. The media says 90% chance, right? It's her turn. And I remember how ubiquitously tired all of the liberals were at the tail end of the election. Like, I just want it to be over already. And we were down in Long Beach, okay? We were like literally liberal central. And yeah, they were like, we're just tired. We want them, we want it just to be over so she can be coronated as our queen. Right. And then the election day happened, and it was the most glorious day of the 21st century to see the utter just devastation on the faces of Cenk Uygur and all the other liberal commentators who just, none of them saw this coming. They all believed they believed their own lies, and they drank the Kool-Aid until they couldn't even see straight. And then when that happened, it so shocked their world, it so just rattled their entire core that they had to come up with some saving face mechanism. They had to, if they were to confront the fact that they were so spectacularly failed, the blame was solely on them for lying to people, for ignoring the true evidence, for basically becoming partisan activists instead of actual journalists. They completely reneged on their original charge as journalists. They become just total partisan hacks. Everyone was on the Hillary Clinton payroll. And, so the schism that already existed between the internet people and the TV brainwashed boomers just split even more. And again, it's not just boomers. Plenty of young people brainwashed by the TV as well, and Vox, and, The Atlantic, and, the Young Turks, right? Holocaust-denying Young Turks, right? Because there's more than one Holocaust, isn't there? There was the Armenian genocide, and Cenk Uygur doesn't even believe that it happened. He named his show after the people who committed it. But anyway, moving on, it basically created this aftermath situation, and they had to make up for the fact that they were 1,000% completely wrong. And so you had John Podesta, Clapper, and Brennan coming out and beginning the Russia hoax, saying that 17, intelligence agencies said that Russia hacked the election. They provided no proof except for, their IP addresses matched Russia. I can go on my VPN on my browser right now and set it to Russia, and all of a sudden I'm a Russian hacker, right? It's a total joke. And again, anybody who's even moderately literate in the internet knows that you can spoof an IP address, and it's the easiest thing in the entire world. That the CIA didn't know that is completely not plausible. Right? And they came up with this spiel that the only way Donald Trump won is by the assistance of foreign powers, that basically he was helped by Putin and the Kremlin and the Russians. Right? And meanwhile, Hillary Clinton was bankrolled by Saudis, Ukraine, right? Foreign corrupt dictatorships the world over, not to mention, pedophiles in Hollywood and around the world as well. The deplorable slur became the second half of the pillar. There were two pillars to this response. One was the Russia hoax, right, of saying that Donald Trump colluded with Russia to take the presidency, right? So they cast a doubt over his entire legitimacy in one sense. And on the other sense, they went forward with the Donald Trump is racist, and furthermore, Americans are all racist. And the only reason they voted for Trump is because they're all just racist, white supremacists, and they just want to exterminate all the subhuman races. And this was their saving faith. This is how they escaped taking responsibility for their own spectacular loss, was by basically Russia, and everyone's a racist. Meh, 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 meh. And these were the things that the left used to avoid taking responsibility for their own failures and their own ignoring of reality. Right? That, Hillary Clinton was completely, utterly corrupt and evil and infirm and not fit to the job, and that Donald Trump actually struck a nerve economically, culturally, just, in a positive message, making America great again. He struck a nerve, and he called out Hillary Clinton on enough hard-hitting, very important things that he got me on board. And, I decided let's give him a shot because I was prepared for Hillary Clinton to become president, and that I was just kind of spiritually, mentally, psychologically like, hey, whatever will be, will be. And if, we have to move out of the country, if we got to resist, basically communism as it, unfolds under the new Clinton dictatorship, well, then that's what it's going to be. Little did I know until later that evening that we would have a spectacular, glorious victory. Right? And so now we're coming out with the details in the public view of what happened with this whole entrapment of the Donald Trump campaign, right? You literally had the FBI sending in Alexander Downer to meet with George Papadopoulos to tell him about the Hillary Clinton emails. I might be mixing up a few of the names, but essentially the intelligence agencies, not just the FBI, the CIA, as well as British intelligence and Australian intelligence was involved as well. Again, it's the Five Eyes, it's the deep state, it's the secret government, they're all connected. They're all sharing information, and that's why it's legal for, say, Britain to spy on an American citizen and the U.S. to spy on a British citizen, and then they share intelligence. So essentially everybody's spying on everybody. And they all, America can spy on its own citizens by means of the UK, and that happens all the time. In this case, it happened with Donald Trump. So they planted the notion that Russia had Hillary Clinton's emails, right? And then they sent in another plant, who was Veselnitskaya, right? This Russian lady who just walked in there and tried to get them to collude with Donald Trump Jr. and Trump Tower. So they basically, intelligence assets went and placed the idea that Russia had Hillary Clinton's emails in the campaign. Then they sent an actual Russian there to try and get them to collude, right? This was an entrapment scheme from start to finish. And again, we now know that the Obama administration, under the signing off of Obama himself, was surveilling the Trump campaign through Carter Page, and it basically, this was signed off on using the Steele dossier, right, which was completely fabricated. There's two aspects to the Steele dossier that I feel like haven't been adequately addressed. And that's that, let's assume that maybe Russia was interfering in the election. It's not entirely implausible at all that, Russia does have a cyber warfare division, and they probably see it as a cost-effective way of kind of exacerbating the tensions and divisions among the people in America by kind of putting out memes here and there. Again, what they found in the Facebook ads, the $100,000 of Facebook ads that supposedly influenced an election of 300 million people, right? They, put that out there, and it was not just on one side, it was to both sides. They were exploiting the divisions between people. And what's amazing is in this whole Mueller report, everything's Russia collusion. The one thing they just didn't quite consider could have been actual Russian disinfo and propaganda was the Steele dossier, right? That's kind of interesting that over 2 years they just never considered that the one most important critical piece of Russian propaganda might have been a deliberate propaganda. Maybe Russia really did want this whole thing to happen, of the left and the right at each other's throats and tearing each other apart. If they did, they worked pretty well. And if they did that, then it stands to reason that the Steele dossier was part of that. And, on the other hand, it might just be 4chan trolling that was given to Rick Wilson, and then Wilson gave it to McCain, and he gave it to the FBI, and so on. Nobody really knows. What we do know is that the Steele dossier is complete bullshit. It is absolutely fraudulent. And that there are still brainwashed liberals out there who think it's true, that Donald Trump was peeing on Russian prostitutes. I made a video over 2 years ago, saying the media died today. Basically, they just screwed the pooch so bad. Little did I know how brainwashed people were and how much momentum this whole thing had. I thought the Russiagate thing was going to peter out a long time ago, and I was wrong. And this just another video here trying to break that spell over to people, because it is still very strong. But ultimately, we're not going to convince the radical communists. It shouldn't be our goal to even try that. But we should expose them in calm and humorous means as we can to capture those people in the middle, because most of America is not on board with the there's no gender, take away all guns, eliminate free speech for the sake of feelings. Most people are not on that vibe. They're not at all. The left assumes they are because they're in a bubble, an echo chamber in San Francisco and New York, and they actually think that their communist delusions are shared by people. Most people have no idea, but meanwhile, the culture keeps moving incrementally more towards that. And again, you got kids in drag being celebrated on the Today Show, and so courageous, right? So we had Strzok, Page, Comey, the insurance policy set up by the FBI, which was completely complicit with the Obama administration and 100% politicized. I'm not a traditional conservative that's going to get up in here and, oh, our FBI is doing good work up there. Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of FBI agents that are, working in good faith and trying to do their jobs. But if the entire heads of the agency are politicized, corrupt political hacks and just working on behalf of the deep state players like, Hillary Clinton, then, I'm not going to give them any praise. I literally can't, right? The second pillar, as we said, of the insurance plan was activated at Charlottesville. That's when the deplorables and the racist trope and the racist shtick became now Trump endorses white supremacy. This was completely a contrived event. Jason Kessler, who was the organizer of Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, was a former SJW, Occupy Wall Street guy. He was totally disingenuous. This was all as essentially a domestic false flag on a part of these radical leftists to create this optics of, the rise of Nazis in the United States. Christopher Cantwell, in my opinion, is probably a deliberate plant as well. I mean, maybe he's just genuinely retarded and a MGTOW loser, but it's possible that he's genuinely stupid. And in my opinion, he was probably a plant as well. Possibly, who knows? But so the Antifa and the Nazis were placed within this otherwise, banal and normal debate over a statue being taken down because of its implications and associations with slavery, right? And this, Trump basically said, I disavow the Nazis, I disavow the violent people on both sides, there were good people on both sides of the statue debate, and, he, by even suggesting that there was anyone on the right who is a good person, by suggesting that 100% of anybody at that event who is not a radical communist, that they are all bad, evil people. That's essentially what the media is claiming to this very day. The fine people hoax, as Scott Adams likes to call it. It's true, it's a fine people hoax. Joe Biden just came out with his campaign, and he basically premised the entire campaign on the existence of the fine people hoax, that Trump actually endorsed white nationalism, white supremacy in the wake of Charlottesville. And this is really kind of where we get down to the topic at hand, which is white supremacy and white nationalism and, American nationalism and all of these terms basically just getting folded into one another. Nazi, white supremacist, white nationalist, American nationalist, all the same to them, right? They all become synonyms. And, these mean very different things, right? And they're all kind of contrived terms by the left, but they do still have, words do still have meanings.